Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. I recently did a video where I showed this card and asked if you wanted a tutorial on it, and the answer was yes. So in my recent video with this card, I demonstrated how to do kind of like an invisible spinner wheel, except that it's acetate, so if there's any kind of light source around, it's not invisible. But I did that. So this was actually the first version that I made. This was the second, but I'm going to show you how to do this. It is using the Counting Sheep stamp set and the sheep dies. So you can get this stamp set for free with a $60 order, and you can also get the dies free for a $60 order. So if you're looking at putting in a $120 order or more, you can choose this as your reward. Now, if you're on the fence, pardon the pun, get the dies first, because the dies are not guaranteed to last. The stamp sets will. So, I mean, in stock, not like they'll disintegrate or blow up or something. So we don't need a whole lot of supplies for this. What we do need is the Give It a Whirl dies, and that is because we need this scalloped circle with the hole in it for the brad. But if you don't have these dies, you could use a large circle die. You could freehand a circle and then just poke a hole in the middle. So I have gone ahead and I've colored and die cut and done most of the prep for this because I want this video to be quick. I've already shown you how to do this, so I mean it's not a video about coloring. So I don't know about you, but I always find the second time I make a card is way harder than the first time. Trying to replicate it is so much harder. So you might be wondering why I am using this DSP for my sky and my grass, but it is because I offered a Counting Sheep class free with a purchase last month, and I prepped 12 of these kits. It was a labor of love. I loved every minute of it, but it was a lot of work. And I just want to show you because I actually have a couple of kits left over. So you will get everything you need to make these cards. You'll get the card base, the mats, the DSP, the die cut pieces. All you need is the stamp set and dies. Now, there are a couple instances where there might be another stamp set. You could easily write that in. Okay. So that You Are Special is from the Hippo and Friends. There's this one, and truth be told, in the kits, you're not getting an action wobble, but you are getting everything else. I've already cut and scored the card base for you, die cut everything. This one was by far the most time consuming, but I think it's also my favorite. And then there's this one. And if you don't have the stamp sets that I've used for some of the sentiments, you could replace it with whatever you want. But I do have a couple of kits available, and they are $20 each because you're not having to make that purchase that the original participants did. And all the work is done. And I'm telling you, it was a lot of work. So drop me a comment. The first 3 people to claim those kits, well, I'm not making any more. Let's put it that way. So once they're gone, they're gone. Now, we have got our window sheet with, I know that you can't see this in the video, but when you use this die, it basically gives you like a pie shape. So there's 1, 2, 3 panels. We are going to adhere our sheep on there, and you don't really want them hanging off too much because they need to be able to clear that space. Okay, so you can see in here, I've got kind of a different way of doing the mechanism. So I will show you that. But first, let's get our sheep on here. And I'm going to use some tear and tape. You could use Stampin' Seal Plus. I do not recommend liquid glue when you're working with a window sheet. It would take a long time to dry. I know some people have really great luck with tear and tape. I do not. I'm one of those people that I need either a sharp edge or a pair of scissors to cut it. Otherwise, it rips my cardstock. So I like to just use my ruler. I do have an adhesive share going on, so if you need to stock up on adhesive like tear and tape, like I do, I will put the link to the form in the video description below, and I will just share a graphic here. There are 5 different bundles. One of them includes build your own bundle. So you can choose what you want, and basically it's going to be just over $60. You could get the counting sheep stamp set as your Sale-A-Bration offer, but you are getting a Sale-A-Bration reward with your purchase. Sale-A-Bration ends on September 30th, so you're going to want to get that order in. And truth be told, I am so close to getting the incentive trip that this is just kind of my last final push. I know I'm going to get there, but might as well make it fun, and you get to benefit in the meantime, right? Okay, so we've got our 3 sheep on there. They don't have to be perfect. Like if this one's hanging off a little bit, but that one's not, no biggie. You can see that you don't see 2 of the heads at the same time. Well, maybe right there. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we need one of our brads. So these are the round and square brads. They come in white and black. It doesn't really matter what color you use because we're not going to see it. I would suggest the larger one versus the small little dot. You see how small that is? They're very little. Now, my little trick for these Give It a Whirl dies is to kind of create a little mechanism, and you can see I've got one of the retired circle punches. I'm never getting rid of my circle punches. So we're going to, this is a foam adhesive sheet. This is also part of at least one of the adhesive bundles, but like I said, you can build your own. So we're going to punch that out, and it's the release paper that gets stuck in there. And then we also want 2 circles out of any scrap cardstock. So we can peel this release paper, and this is what helps this wheel spin so much easier. If you've seen anything with the Give It a Whirl dies, it can be tricky getting your finger in there to spin because there's just not enough distance. We're also going to be using foam adhesive strips on here to give some height. Okay, so there we go. And now what I'm going to do is just poke a hole in the middle. You could use a hole punch, but I find my take your pick tool is enough, and we just need it to be able to go through the brad, to be able to go through that. Okay, so we're going to put that through there, this through this. We don't have anything sticky, so everything's still going to spin nicely. It's not going to spin nicely so much on here because there's nothing for it to hold on to, but I'll trim this down. Right now this is 4 by 5.5. It doesn't need to be that long. It doesn't even need to cover the whole base, truth be told. So let's cut it down to 4 by 5.25, which is a standard mat. We'll use Stampin' Seal. I did not plan this so that I would be using every adhesive that I have and every adhesive that's available in the catalog, but it's kind of working out that way. And I don't know about you, but I had never heard of an adhesive share, but I think it's a great way to get your adhesives. So we're going to cut this down probably closer to the end, but I think what I'm going to do, let's just cut it now. Mark it there and cut it down. So what we need to do is put our foam adhesive tape on here. I was thinking maybe I'd use some cardstock, but I did not. So what we need to do is we're going to put some along the bottom and some along the 2 sides. We don't need any at the top, otherwise our mechanism will not spin. We also can't go all the way up to the side. So I find that just putting a couple of little scraps works great. You can't put anything in there either, so I just want one more little piece. And you may be wondering, well, Why aren't you using dimensionals? Once you start working with the foam adhesive strips, you need to keep using the foam adhesive strips because they are just a little bit thicker than dimensionals. The foam is just ever so slightly taller. I probably should have attached that before I did that, but that's okay. So, well, I'm gonna show you something here. So I goofed. I do this all the time. I'm like, not famous, but maybe infamous for this. I always end up putting my layers down and then realize I needed to do something. So dental floss is a great tool to have in your craft room. And it's not the only dental product I have in here. I also have floss threaders. But if you have used liquid glue or Stampin' Seal, Stampin' Seal's way easier to remove, but it can be done with glue. You can also huff on it to get some of that adhesive to release. But you're just gonna kind of saw back and forth, making sure you've got a good grip on it. And then off it comes. And I'd like to say that this was by design, but I do this all the dang time. I don't know why I design things that have to be put down in a certain order. Okay, so we're gonna want this about right there. And if it's not perfectly centered, that's fine. But let's put this through. Make sure it's still spinning. That might even be a little bit high. Let's do it that way so that we've still got some sky, because we've got 4 clouds to put up there. Okay, so once you've got that on there, just make sure that it can still spin. Doesn't need to be super tight. Now we can put this back on. I don't even need to reapply. Okay. You can't even tell that there's a brad in there. So now let's just make sure that this is going to work the way we want. It spins perfectly. So I don't think there's anything else we need to do before we adhere this. So let's get this piece on. Just release, take all this release paper off. And I am so sorry this video is later than usual. Normally it would be first thing Monday morning. But I kid you not, my weekend was an absolute marathon. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, you know this. But I kid you not, all day I went to record this video, and every time there was like a motorcycle or a lawnmower or something, and it was just constant. So it's finally quiet. It's almost eerily quiet, but that is why this is coming to you so late. So I'm sorry. But I think you would prefer that over the constant noise that was my day. Okay, so I have die cut 4 clouds. And the beauty of these clouds is that they can be used for clouds or like little bushes. So let's just kind of dry fit this. I want my fence to kind of cover the seam. I'm not good with words. As I age, I'm just losing more and more. So I went ahead and colored these. There's nothing fancy about the coloring. I used soft suede, light and dark for the brown sheep with some light crumb cake to outline. And then I used basic black, light and dark, you can see, and a little bit of smoky slate. Now on my original, I did take my color lifter and I just made them a little bit lighter. I was sitting watching TV and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this. But I didn't want to be sitting here and doing 3, 4, 5 sheep. So I did go ahead and do that. I'm a little particular about stuff like this. So you can see that this is die cut. It's got the usual outline that we would normally have. But I actually went in with my Stampin' Blends and you can see I colored the part that would be near the fence. The rest is like the grassy area. So yeah. And who doesn't love a black sheep? So let's pop this down. I'm just going to use liquid glue for most of these die cuts, but some of them we will pop up. So we don't want to put glue on the top because we don't want it catching our spinning feature. I'm not going to tell you how long it took for me to realize that that side was different than this side. Like we've got those little pieces on there. I didn't notice that for the longest time, but I'm guessing if you want to have like a continuous fence, you would keep building on that side, right? Yeah, not the brightest bulb in the drawer. Okay, so we'll use a couple of dimensionals. One for the sun, and it's the perfect size. We are going to, do you notice there's two different shapes? So we've got these two that have a more pronounced bump on that side, and then the one that's a little more flat. We are going to use two of each for our clouds. So pop one of each of them up. Let's just go ahead and place our sun now. And I did go over that with Wink of Stella. It's a little bit further over than the first one was, but that's all right. We're going to take this one, and this is rather small, so a full-size dimensional won't fit, but a couple of minis will. But let's not put one on this side because we don't want to double pop it. So, and if you're not sure what I mean, you'll see in just a second. If, when you're using dimensionals, some people say pop it up. So I don't want it to be double the height there. So I'm going to put glue on here. And we'll pop that there. I don't want to cover a full side of that sun. So let's just cover one of those rays. And then we're going to pop this one up, and we can put 3 dimensionals on that, minis. And if you find that a mini's too big, you can always cut it. I did put Wink of Stella on these as well. But like I said, I want to make this quick, so I'm not going to do all of those little steps. Okay, one cloud down here, and it will be cut off at the end. One more cloud. And that one will cut off as well. I didn't the first time. Let's put that one over. It can be nearly all the way on. And then for these, I actually used Mossy Meadow the first time, and I colored them. It was because I tried using this little grass stamp that's in here, and I did not care for it. So we are going to leave well enough alone this time. Okay, so again, we're just going to glue these. We're not going to pop them up. There is more than enough depth with our spinning mechanism. So let's cover up the base of this fence. And then for this little guy, we're going to add some liquid glue, and then we're going to have him or her standing behind that next bush. And maybe you can see on here, my die shifted just a little bit when I went to die cut. So I've got more white on one side than I would like. But we're going to fix that when we color in those edges. So let's not put this one on yet. And you can do this part before you adhere it, but this one, I need to know where I'm going. So whenever I try and match, I always get the darker of the two, because Stampin' Blends come in 2 packs. So there's a light and a dark for each. So I'm going to use my dark Granny Apple Green to outline this guy. And I'm going to use my bullet tip because I don't have a lot of room and I'm coloring on white. And if I go into the body of the sheep, sure, I have a color lifter, but there may always be that little hint of green, and I don't want that. So I'll use the bullet tip, which is a little more precise than the brush tip. And now that I've gone to the trouble of doing that, I'm also going to go around the edge to make sure that there's no white. I probably got it all when I was coloring, but so cute, right? Versus this. Now, I want you to kind of take a mental picture of this before and then after. It totally looks like a die cut right now, right? So does this one. But, well, not now because we've fixed that. And I do this with a lot of my designs. I remember a ladybug card that I did a couple of years ago was on a multicolored background, like it framed. And my class participants and I, we colored that in so that it didn't look like a die cut. I am I'm going to put a block on that while I do this one. Now this one is a little trickier because, like I said, I've already had to mount that onto the card. So I think what I'm going to do is, now that I've put that block right in my way, I'm going to go in the areas where I need the soft suede first, and you want to try and avoid coloring on your fence. But this area can all be brown, and there's not very much of it that needs to be brown, but you're just looking at the fence and figuring out where that is. And I think that might be it for the brown. The rest is all green. So now anywhere that I haven't colored the brown, I'm going to come in with a green. And if you're not comfortable coloring like this, where you have it already glued on your page, you could always come in and mark the spots where you're going to have the brown, and then do it on a piece of scrap or grid paper like I did with the first one. Now with this one, if we have any kind of white edges, we're stuck with it because it's right on there. But I find that if I leave my marker there for just a second at the edge, it will kind of bleed onto the white part that I'm trying to cover. That makes sense? I don't even know if it made sense to me. But if you just leave it there for a second, it will fill in that little bit of white. Now remember, I was saying that I had more white on the back of the legs than the front. Once this is done, only someone who's really looking for it is going to notice that. So I know this is extra. I know it takes extra time, but it's, to me, it's those little touches that make all the difference. Like, this doesn't look like a die cut anymore. It looks like that sheep was just meant to be there. So now we can take this, and I got some glue on the front, so I'm just gonna wipe that. Tombow does dry clear, but it dries with a bit of a shiny finish. So if you have any glue that you don't want to show on the front, wipe it off first. Now, because these had some texture and this doesn't, I'm just, oh, I don't like that either. We're just gonna draw in some grass. And I'll come in with my light marker and blend this. Should have left well enough alone. Do you ever do that? Look at something and think, oh, it's missing something. I'm just gonna go in and fix it. And then, I don't love that. Okay, so going over it with the light granny apple green will kind of minimize that. Will also help these to stand out a little bit more than they did because it's granny apple green on granny apple green. Now, of course, I'm putting my hand in that one sticky spot. Okay, and then the only other piece is the sentiment, and that is just so easy. So let's cut this cloud off, because that certainly wouldn't fit in the envelope like that. I actually find it's easier to look from the inside. See if it's coming off. So I'm going to skip this because it's just so easy, but I wanted to show you that I made my own sentiment in here, and it's not part of this set. I feel like it really could have used more sentiments in here, but this is part of... Okay, I finally found it. Phew! I'm trying to think of every stamp set I had out. So, life is better with you, and you could keep it like that, but I thought life is better with you. So what I did to do this, it's funny, I actually thought about throwing this out the other day, but I took the Playful Alphabet dies and just a scrap of cardstock, and I die cut the E, W, E, and then I just used a blending brush to get this. So let me just show you. I'll show you quickly. And these are just Post-it notes on here. So all I want is a blending brush, and we're just going to use a little bit of gray. Hoping that's black that's on there. Okay, so I've got a little bit of smoky slate. Let's just make sure that's good. And you don't need a heavy hand. You don't want to bend your little template. And you don't need a ton of ink because this is on basic white. So cute, right? It does have a blue tone. Maybe I use Night and Navy, I don't know. But I just made that little template. You can make your own stencils. And then we'll do our Life is Better With. I started thinking, what animal sets have I used? Like, I know this has to be a really cute stamp set. Okay, so I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to grab my smoky slate. I'm not going to drop my pad. And instead of masking the word you, I'm just not going to get any ink on it. Do you see that my stamp isn't going that far over? And then Life is Better With. Isn't that so stinking cute? And then this one even has like a little ram. We're just going to stamp this happy little jumping guy, which is the one that's on our spinning wheel. So let's just take that. And we're just going to, I'm going to ink up the whole thing because the last thing I want is to have to draw in the lines because I didn't ink up the whole thing. So how stinking cute is that? We just totally made our own custom sentiment. Well, kind of. And then we just have the sentiment there, but I might as well finish it, right? We've come this far. So this scrap should be enough to stamp my sentiment. I'm just going to use smoky slate since it's right here. And I felt like the black on my first card was a little stark. So let's just do You're Amazing. Instead of having to use a banner pick-a-punch and we have to have it at 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, or an inch, I'm going to bring in my favorite punch, the tailored tag punch. And all I do is I put it in there, centered hopefully, find out where that font is, and then back it up just a little bit, and I've got a perfect banner every time. Tailored Tag Punch was actually one of my first. It came out shortly after I joined, so it holds a special place in my heart. You may want to do a little ink blending on here. You may want to put an embellishment, but I really want my spinning sheep to be the star of the show. And you can see I've got this hanging over the grass. It just goes to the edge of the card. And I did the same thing on the first, but I hope that you enjoyed this. The only piece I'm missing is my twine along the top, which I feel like just finishes it. But I am going to do my Wink of Stella and add my twine, and I hope you enjoyed that. If you have not yet subscribed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. You'll catch a new video each and every week, usually Monday mornings, but sometimes life just gets in the way. And that is all for today. I thank you so much for watching, my crafty friends. Bye.